The anticipation of our annual trip to Oakridge Woods was different this year. In the past, the week leading up to our weekend getaway was filled with laughter, planning, and an unspoken excitement. This year, however, there was a palpable tension in the air. Lily, with her usually infectious enthusiasm, seemed distant, her smiles forced, and her once bright eyes shadowed with something resembling fear. As I loaded our camping gear into the back of the car, I stole glances at her. She moved mechanically, her actions devoid of the zest they once had. "Everything okay?" I asked, more out of concern than curiosity. She paused, giving me a fleeting look that I couldn't quite decipher, before masking her expression with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yeah, just didn't sleep well last night," she replied, dismissing her evident discomfort. But the unease lingered, like a dense fog between us. The drive to Oakridge was quiet, the usual banter replaced with sporadic small talk and long silences. Lily stared out the window, lost in thought, while I focused on the road ahead, my mind racing with unanswered questions. What was troubling her? Was it something I did? I shook my head, trying to dispel the growing worry. Upon arriving at our usual camping spot, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. This secluded area, surrounded by the dense forest and the familiar scent of pine, had always felt like our private retreat from the world. We began setting up camp in comfortable silence, falling into the familiar routine that had always brought us closer. The tent went up, and the campfire was lit, its warm glow comforting in the growing dusk. As the evening crept in, we settled around the fire. The crackling flames cast flickering shadows, and for a moment, the tension seemed to melt away. We roasted marshmallows, a tradition that always managed to bring a genuine smile to Lily's face. But tonight, her smiles were fleeting, and her eyes frequently darted to the surrounding darkness, as if expecting something to emerge. I reached out, taking her hand in mine, trying to offer silent reassurance. She squeezed back, a silent thank you, but the unease remained, a tangible presence in the cooling night air. The forest, usually a place of tranquility, felt ominously quiet, as if holding its breath. And then, as the night deepened, we heard it for the first time, the faint, eerie whispering that would turn our cherished tradition into a nightmare we could never have anticipated. The night around us was alive with the usual sounds of the wilderness, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, and the crackling of our campfire. We should have felt at peace in our familiar sanctuary, surrounded by the comforting embrace of nature. Yet, there was an undercurrent of tension, a discordant note in the natural harmony that I couldn't quite place. As we sat there, the air grew colder, the fire's warmth no longer enough to fend off the chill that seemed to seep into our bones. Lily pulled her jacket tighter around her, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames, casting shadows that danced across her face, deepening the lines of worry that had taken residence there. Then it started. Soft and almost imperceptible at first, like the murmur of a distant stream. It was a whisper, a susurration that seemed neither human nor natural, weaving through the trees, rustling the leaves in its wake. The forest that was once filled with the comforting sounds of nocturnal life fell silent, as if listening, respecting, or fearing the voice that didn't belong. "Lily." The whisper seemed to curl around her name, stretching it out, imbuing it with an eerie significance. I saw her stiffen, her hand gripping mine with an intensity that betrayed her fear. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice a mere breath, mirroring the whispers in its softness, yet laden with dread. I nodded, unable to deny the chill that ran down my spine. The whispers grew in volume, becoming clearer, more insistent. They were calling to her, drawing her in. I could feel her slipping away from me, drawn by the invisible strings of the whispered entreaties. "It's just the wind," I tried to convince both of us, though my words felt hollow, lost in the growing unease. But deep down, I knew it was a lie. The forest was holding its breath, and the whispers filled the void, becoming the only sound in the suffocating silence. Lily stood up abruptly, her movements almost trance-like. "We need to find out what it is," she said, her voice laced with a mix of fear and an inexplicable pull towards the source of the whispers. Her eyes, wide and searching, met mine, seeking understanding or perhaps permission. I wanted to protest, to pull her back, to wrap her in my arms and away from whatever was calling her. But the look in her eyes stopped me. It was as if she was seeing beyond the firelight, beyond the trees, into a place I couldn't follow. With a sense of dread that knotted my stomach, I stood, knowing I couldn't let her face this alone. Hand in hand, we stepped away from the safety of our campfire, drawn into the dark embrace of the woods. Each step felt like a betrayal of reason, but the whispers grew louder, more compelling, as if imbued with a power that refused to be ignored. We moved as if in a dream, the forest around us both familiar and unrecognizable, transformed by the shadow of something unseen, something that whispered Lily's name with a longing that chilled me to the bone. Our journey into the heart of the woods felt like an eternity, each step taking us further from the safety of our camp and deeper into the unknown. The darkness around us was absolute, the kind of darkness that seems to swallow sound and light alike. The trees, once friendly sentinels, now loomed over us like silent judges, their branches twisting into grotesque shapes in the limited moonlight that managed to penetrate the dense canopy. The whispers guided us, a malevolent thread of sound in the oppressive silence, leading us as if by a leash. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat echoing the fear coursing through my veins. Lily's hand in mine was cold, her grip tight, as if holding on to me was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Suddenly we stumbled into a clearing, a gaping maw in the forest where the moonlight dared not touch. The air here was colder, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The ground beneath our feet was barren, void of the life that flourished just a few feet away. It was as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to unfold. There, in the center of the clearing, stood the source of our terror. The creature was like nothing I had ever seen, a nightmare given form. It was tall, its body a mass of shadows that twisted and writhed, never quite solid, but undeniably present. Its eyes, though, were the most horrifying, glowing with a malevolent light that seemed to pierce the soul. They were fixed on Lily, a predator eyeing its prey. Lily froze, her body rigid with fear, her eyes locked with the creature's in a silent battle of wills. I felt her slipping away, drawn into the abyss of those terrible eyes, and in that moment, I knew true fear. Not fear for myself, but for her, for the loss of the light that had always been my guide. The creature moved, a mere shifting of the darkness, and a sound escaped from Lily, a whimper of pure terror. It was the sound of her breaking that shattered the spell holding me frozen. Instinct took over, a primal need to protect her from the horror before us. With a shout, I lunged forward, breaking the invisible connection between them. I grabbed Lily, pulling her back towards the safety of the trees, away from the clearing and the creature that seemed to watch us go with a silent, dreadful amusement. We ran, blind panic our guide, crashing through the underbrush, the whispers now a furious storm in our ears, until we emerged, gasping and sobbing, back at our camp. The safety of the fire and the familiar surroundings did little to comfort us. Lily was shaking, her eyes wide and unseeing, as if part of her was still locked in that dreadful clearing. I wrapped my arms around her, trying to provide some semblance of safety, to bring her back from the edge of the abyss she had peered into. But even as we sat there, clinging to each other, I knew something had irreparably changed. The encounter had left its mark, a dark stain on our souls that the light of the fire could not dispel. The whispers, though now gone, had been replaced by a suffocating silence, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the reach of the firelight. And in Lily's eyes, I saw a haunting reflection of that darkness, a glimpse of something foreign and terrifying that had taken residence within her. In the days that followed our harrowing experience in the woods, the change in Lily became more pronounced, more alarming. She was physically present, but seemed lost in a world I could not reach. Her once warm and vibrant self replaced by someone or something else. Her nights were plagued with nightmares, her screams echoing in the confined space of our home, a stark, chilling reminder of the unseen scars left by our encounter. Lily's appetite vanished. She would push her food around her plate, her gaze distant, as if she were listening to a far-off whisper only she could hear. I watched her with a growing sense of helplessness, witnessing her slow, inexorable retreat from me, from the world we knew. She started to speak less and less, and when she did, her voice was different, hollower, as if it resonated with the whispers that had lured us into the darkness. Occasionally, she would lapse into languages I couldn't understand, her voice taking on an eerie cadence that sent chills down my spine. I searched for help, reaching out to doctors, psychologists, anyone who might be able to pull her back from the brink. But their solutions were grounded in a reality that no longer seemed to apply to us. They didn't, and couldn't, understand that what we faced was not of this world. Her physical transformation was equally disturbing. Her eyes, once filled with light and laughter, were now pools of shadow, reflecting none of the love or joy they once held. Dark veins traced her skin like creeping vines, and her movements became erratic, jerky, as if she was being controlled by some external force. I found strange symbols scratched into the surfaces of our home, cryptic, unsettling designs that appeared overnight, their meanings elusive but their intentions unmistakably sinister. Lily would spend hours staring at them, whispering to herself, lost in a trance that I dared not break. Our home, once a sanctuary filled with love and memories, had become a prison. The air was thick with unspoken dread, every corner shadowed with the remnants of our shattered past. Friends stopped visiting, their concern and confusion turning to fear and avoidance. I was alone, utterly and desperately alone, tasked with caring for the shell of the woman I loved while battling an unseen enemy that had infiltrated our lives, our very existence. Then came the night when everything changed. The night when I found her standing by the bed, staring down at me with those dark, empty eyes. Her hand clutched a small makeshift recorder, a trembling whisper of her former self captured within. The message she left was a goodbye, a final plea from the depths of her lost soul, urging me to end her suffering if our paths should ever cross again. Her words were a mixture of love, despair, and an unspoken apology, leaving me shattered, holding the fractured pieces of our life together with shaking hands. The following morning, she was gone. The house, now silent, felt devoid of any life it once held. The absence of her presence, of her essence, was a palpable void, a black hole that sucked in all light, all hope. I replayed her message over and over, each time hoping for a different ending, for some clue to where she might have gone or how I could save her. But there was nothing, just the haunting echo of her voice, a reminder of the impossible choice she had left in my hands. The days following Lily's disappearance were a blur of despair and frantic action. I scoured the woods where we had encountered the unimaginable, calling her name until my voice was hoarse, searching for any sign of her, but the forest remained silent, indifferent to my agony. I distributed flyers, spoke with local authorities, and reached out to anyone who might have seen her, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. The nights were the hardest. The silence of our home was a constant reminder of her absence. I would sit in the darkness, replaying her final message, clinging to the sound of her voice as if it were a lifeline. The weight of her plea hung over me, a relentless shadow that tainted every memory of our time together. Could I, if faced with the choice, fulfill her last request? The thought haunted me, a specter more terrifying than the creature we had encountered in the woods. The isolation was suffocating. Friends who had once been our lifeline withdrew, unable to bridge the gap between our shared past and the present darkness. I was alone with my memories and the growing fear that I might never find her, never have the chance to say goodbye, or worse, be forced to fulfill her final, heartbreaking wish. I expanded my search, delving into the world of the supernatural, seeking answers from those who claimed to understand the darkness that had enveloped Lily. I learned of entities, of spirits and demons that preyed on the living, but nothing I found could lead me back to her. The realization that I was battling forces beyond my understanding was a bitter pill to swallow, leaving me feeling more powerless than ever. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation in my own life became more pronounced. The once vibrant memories of our life together were now tinged with a haunting regret and an unshakable guilt for not having been able to protect her. The home we had built together, once a sanctuary filled with love, became a mausoleum of our past life, each room filled with the echoing absence of her presence. The recording, Lily's final message, became a sacred artifact, the only piece of her I had left. Her plea, a mix of love, despair, and resignation, was a constant reminder of the decision that lay ahead. It was a decision I hoped with every fiber of my being I would never have to make. But hope was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the harsh realities of our situation. The entity that had taken her from me, that had turned our love into a weapon against us, remained at large, its motives as inscrutable as the darkness from which it had emerged. I was left to ponder the unthinkable, to prepare myself for the moment when I might have to confront Lily again, not as my beloved, but as the embodiment of the very darkness we had once sought to escape. As I wandered through the remnants of our life, I clung to the faint hope that love, our love, might somehow reach her, might bring her back from the brink. But in the depths of the night, when the shadows grew long and the world outside fell silent, I could not escape the truth that lay in the heart of her final message. In her plea, born of love and despair, lay the acknowledgement of a terrifying reality. That the Lily I knew, the woman I loved, was gone, and what remained was something else entirely, something dangerous, something lost to the darkness. And so, I wait, suspended between the past and an unthinkable future, haunted by her whispers and the chilling plea from her last message, lost in the echoing silence of our once happy home.